It is Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, and this article recently came to my attention. This is from the Cuyahoga County, Cleveland Plain Dealer newspaper, which has a website called cleveland.com. And it says 3,000 Cuyahoga County homeowners could have tax liens sold on their properties. Cuyahoga County is projecting more than $60 million in unpaid property taxes this year after home values and tax bills jumped. That's the highest delinquency rate the budget office has ever seen. Well, hello. People are hurting out there. People are losing their jobs. People's property taxes jumped, in some cases, more than 200%. So, why is anybody surprised? And it means that with homeowners struggling to pay their bills, local governments and school districts are not receiving the revenue they depend on. Well, it's a full circle. When people lose their jobs, they're not receiving the salaries they depend on. When people get sick or have major health issues that come up, well, they're not receiving the income, the salaries that they depend on because they can't work. So does that mean that these people deserve to lose their homes? For example, in Rocky River, school property tax collections are coming in a bit lower than projected, mainly because fewer people are catching up on overdue payments. To collect what's owed, Cuyahoga County is seeking to sell about $33 million worth of tax lien certificates for 3,000 parcels to a company that would then work with property owners to settle their delinquent taxes. The revenue would be split 61% to school districts, 22% to the county, 12% to municipalities, and 5% to libraries. The total for the county would amount to about $500,000 for the general fund and more than $1.5 million for the Health and Human Services levy, a fraction of county's $1.7 billion budget. Now, this is why they say that we just rent from the government. So you can live in your home for 30 years, pay off your mortgage, but you're still renting from the government. So until the day you die, you're on the hook for these property taxes, and these values are arbitrarily increased every 3 years. And then you have no control over what people in your own municipality are voting for. So if you're a senior and your kids have already gone to school, got married, they're no longer using the public school system, well, if you live in a town where 90% of the people in that town have children, well, then you're also paying for the schools even though you're no longer using them. Is that fair? So this article talks about the Cuyahoga County property taxes. So if you own a home in Cuyahoga County, knowing the property tax due dates is key. This helps avoid penalties and late fees. So this is your rent to the government until the day you die. So the main date for paying property taxes in Cuyahoga County is February 15th, 2025. Yes, we know that they fund services like schools, roads, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. The Cuyahoga County Auditor's Office sets property values. And, there's been some talk about how certain counties, I can't say whether it's Cuyahoga County or what counties are involved, that they figure out what they need and then they set the values based on what they say that they want to spend. So they use these values to figure out how much taxes are owed. So, types of taxable properties. Many types of properties are taxed in Cuyahoga County, including residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural. But many, many times you hear a story about commercial properties receiving sizable tax abatements, such as here. You have the Cleveland Browns. Berea, which is a suburb close to Hopkins Airport on the west side of Cleveland, they're wanting this new Browns domed stadium. So, this is the big story of the day. Berea extends Browns training facility lease. OK's District 46 tax abatements. So who gets to pay all the taxes? It's residential properties. So after several months of negotiations between Berea officials and the Cleveland Browns, Haslam's sports group management team, City Council has approved 2 ordinances needed for the mixed-use District 46 at Cross Country Mortgage Campus project. District 46 is slated to include a 7,000-seat community multi-sport field, an upscale hotel, a university hospital sports medicine facilities, 150 market rate apartments, a parking garage, retail space, and more. So who benefits from that except mostly the Haslam family and some of their politicians, their politician friends, people who use the sporting stadium. I don't go to these sporting stadiums. So these tax abatements, again, they're funded by the residential taxpayer. The first ordinance, which passed unanimously during Council's March 17th, a regular meeting, amends the current Browns training facility lease agreement. The second piece, which passed 7-0 at a March 24th special council meeting, provides tax increment financing, tax abatements, and other financial incentives as part of the District 46 Development Agreement. Under the new lease agreement, the Browns, which always lose, may enact 2 5-year lease extensions at their discretion, with estimated revenue to Berea of approximately $38.8 million for the first 5 years, 2040 to 2045, and $43.6 million for the second 5 years, 2045 to 2050. The tax incentives legislation provides abatements on new payroll taxes 15 years, admissions taxes 30 years, and hotel bed taxes 30 years. Berea receives a $1 million payment for the city-owned land, $1 million in permit fees, $4 million in cash, and income taxes generated as a result of the new apartments. Getting a lot of that upfront money sooner than later, and we know it's for sure, is always a good sign. Whereas the Browns initially sought tax increment financing for 60 years, which is assessed on the increase in property taxes and new construction generates, the term was negotiated down to 30 years. So again, who is paying for this tax? The residents. And the state of Ohio does that with the data centers and the Amazon warehouses and any other businesses that they're trying to bring in. And then all the residents get stuck with the bill. So, assessment process overview. The assessment process looks at a property's market value to set taxes. The Cuyahoga County Treasurer updates values every 6 years, with smaller updates every 3 years. So, this market value here is what is very arbitrary, and I'm not sure how they do it, but like I said, I didn't have any appraiser come to my home, so I have no idea how they can establish the value without just arbitrarily estimating it based on regional sales data. And again, marking it up to this arbitrary value is basically taxing residents on unrealized gains. So you can be living in your home for 30 years. You're not borrowing from the home. You've paid your mortgage off, but then your taxes jump 50% on what? You didn't sell it. You didn't receive any money, so why should we be paying that? It should be illegal. Key changes for the 2025 tax year. The Cuyahoga County Treasurer's Office has made important updates for 2025. These include changes to tax rates and payment schedules. Residential property values have seen a 32.22% increase on average. Commercial and industrial properties have seen increases in 8.45 and 8.49% respectively. It's vital for taxpayers to know about these changes. This ensures they follow the new rules and can use any relief programs available. The 2025 property tax due date, Cuyahoga County, is a key date to remember. Here are some important points to keep in mind. The Cuyahoga County taxes due dates can change based on property type and location. The Cuyahoga County taxes due date 2025 is a critical deadline to avoid penalties for late payment. Property values in Ohio are assessed at 35% of the appraised value. Blah, blah, blah. This can affect the taxes owed. So, we do pay twice a year. For 2025, it was due on January 31st, 2025. And you receive a 10-day grace period So if you don't pay within 10 days of the due date, then you receive a 10% penalty on the unpaid taxes. Oh boy, paying property taxes early can save you from late fees and penalties. So you don't get any discounts. So why would you want to pay early? And then the second half of property taxes in Cuyahoga County is due on July 31st, 2025. There are several ways to make payments. You can use online portals, mail, or visit the Cuyahoga County's Treasurer's Office in Cleveland. So you get that 10-day grace period. So there's even mobile home taxes. They tax just about anything. So if you live in a cardboard box, would they tax that? Who knows? That's where it's going. So the following outlines the available payment methods and options: cash, check, money order, credit, debit card. There's also the Easy Pay service for monthly, semi-annual, or yearly payments. So remember, real estate taxes are due on the third Thursday of February and July. Mobile home taxes are due on March 1st and July 31st. So, the Cuyahoga County Treasurer's Office charges a 10% penalty on late taxes. This penalty applies if taxes are not paid within 10 days after the closing date. It's important to know the Cuyahoga County real estate tax due dates to avoid extra charges. For late payments, a 5% fee is added from January 29th to February 7th. So after February 7th, the fee jumps to 10%. A 10% penalty is applied to taxes not paid in full within 10 calendar days of the closing date. So what's the closing date as opposed to the due date? Additional fees and interest may be associated with tax lien certificates sold on properties. Interest rates are based on the amount of taxes owed. Taxpayers can set up payment plans for delinquent taxes. This helps avoid more penalties and interest, so that's good. But again, property taxes are just rent that you pay to the government until the day you die. So that's why with these rising property taxes, you have to ask yourself, you have to make the calculation, well, would you be better off renting? But then there's no guarantee that your rent won't spike 50% the next year. So Cuyahoga County has programs to help homeowners with property taxes. These programs are for seniors and people with disabilities. It's important to know about these options when dealing with property taxes, but you don't have to be a senior or have a disability to fall on some financial disaster like losing your job, having a medical emergency, catastrophic medical debt. that can happen to you if you're 25, 35, 45. There's nothing to address that. The county wants to help elderly homeowners with property taxes. They can get up to $10,000 in assistance. To qualify, your income must be under $70,000 a year. So at least it's not your income must be under $30,000 a year, because nowadays who can live with $30,000 with the inflation? Available relief programs: homestead exemption for homeowners 65 plus or those with disability if income is right. Military benefits, senior citizen programs. This is all looks fine and dandy, but to me, I think taxing a person's home, their primary home, is criminal. It's just plain criminal. You pay your mortgage and you're still paying these stupid taxes, and the taxes are based on arbitrary value. 35% of X, so X can be inflated to the moon. What is X? It's just an arbitrary value. It's a scam. It should be illegal. Plus, again, if you lose your job, if you have a catastrophic medical event, anything, some mental issue where maybe you have a breakdown and you need to take disability from your job, a leave of absence. Well, with the cost of living increasing month after month after month, the inflation, well, people's savings accounts are going down. And yeah, you got money in the stock market, sure, it's going up, but who's to say it's not going to go down tomorrow? But what I'm trying to say is people's financial resources aren't what they were 10 years ago due to the inflation, the dollar losing value, which is inflation, tariffs, and just this increasing job loss. Who's to say that you're sitting pretty now? Well, tomorrow you could lose your job. Tomorrow you could have a medical emergency, and you might have savings for several months. Well, what happens when the savings go down and your property taxes keep going up? Especially if you're paying escrow. Well, the mortgage company is going to want more than what your property tax is. The property tax increase because they always want to put a cushion in your escrow account. So more than likely, your escrow, your mortgage payment is going to really jump, and you're going to be in for the shock of your life. And then what do you do if you lose your job? Well, then you're going to be a person who's calling the county asking for a payment plan, but then you have all your other bills. You have your mortgage, your car payment, and if you don't have a car payment, you still have bills. If you're a senior, you have your Social Security, your payment for your Social Security. Everybody's got something that they need to pay. So just having a tax on your home, like I said, it's just criminal. Then, if you can't pay your taxes, if you really have fallen on hard times, well, then you're going to be one of those 3,000 Cuyahoga County homeowners who have tax liens who are losing their homes. So I'm hoping that people in the state of Ohio wake up, people in the entire nation in general wake up, because you might be in a low tax area, a low tax state today, but that might not be the case tomorrow. I think any state in the United States is vulnerable to having a huge property tax increase because of the inflation and greedy governments, and then the school system that never seems to have enough money, and that's a whole other subject. The school districts, I can go on and on and on about the school district, having to pay taxes for these school districts that never seem to have enough. I've never in my life lived in a town where the school districts weren't clamoring for more money. It just goes on and on and on. And then it's even worse if you're having to pay into these schools. You either don't have children, or your children have grown up and you're no longer using the school system. So yeah, there's the argument that, oh yeah, having a good school district makes your property values go up, and having a good school district, having these kids, they're going to benefit us all. But compared to other countries, I think that the performance of the United States school system is far below par, just based on working with, international companies and seeing how far advanced they are over a lot of the people in the United States. I mean, come on, I don't think the school districts are up to par as far as performance. I think that a lot of the curriculum in today's school district has been completely dumbed down. So, I mean, you just look at some of, the language skills and just the skills in general of people graduating from these schools compared to people who graduated in the 60s and 70s. And then you could say, well, the people in the 60s and the 70s, they got a subpar education compared to the people in the 40s and the 50s. But there is a vast difference. I mean, come on. So there needs to be accountability for these school districts. But I can go on and on and on, and I hope to God that this property tax abolishment gets on the ballot, because I'm definitely voting yes to abolish property taxes, because there are other funding methods, and Ohioans need to wake up and realize that there are other funding methods besides property taxes to fund these schools and the police and paramedics. And we need to just look at these other funding methods, which I think will be fairer, because they will spread the burden, the costs, amongst more people. Because given that the cost of housing, the cost to purchase a home, the cost to insure a home, the cost to maintain a home is just ridiculously high, less people own homes now. So that means that there's less burden spread around, and the homeowners are getting screwed by sharing a larger burden of the cost. When there's a lot of people renting and they don't pay property taxes, but I'm sure a lot of them have children in the school system, so they should also share in the burden of funding these schools. So that is why I am advocating for different funding methods rather than property taxes. And property taxes need to be abolished and made illegal, because they are basically extorting us from our homes, like the mafia. You don't pay up, well, we're going to throw you out of your home, and we're going to publicize it as part of the public record that you did not pay your property taxes. So not only would you get the indignity of losing your home, but you also get the indignity of having that information as part of the public record. So that's all I have to say about this. Please, Ohioans, wake up. Vote to abolish the property taxes. And please, don't let the unions and the school districts try to scare you, because they will. They will have millions of dollars of funding to publish various articles and have a gazillion commercials about how if we have no property taxes, there will be no schools, there will be no firemen, no police. They're going to do anything they can to fearmonger and try to get people to vote no. So please, Ohioans, don't fall for it. We must abolish the property taxes. Thank you.